In Adeline's 29th year of life, the most significant label was obedience. However, in the final year, she decided to call the shots. For a long time, perhaps a few minutes, maybe just seconds, Adeline stared blankly at the doctor in front of her with silver-white hair. Not a word escaped her lips. The doctor sighed and handed her a piece of paper. It was then that Adeline noticed her tear-streaked face. "Take some time to think about it. I recommend hospitalization as soon as possible," the doctor said. "Okay." Adeline walked out of the examination room with floating steps, but her phone rang at that moment. The screen displayed 2 words, "Mother." She frowned, and as she answered, the veins on the hand holding the phone bulged, yet her tone was gentle and soft. "Mom," Adeline said. "Have you met him?" Lydia, as straightforward as always, got straight to the point. "Yes." "Yes what?" "The matchmaker said you only sat for less than 20 minutes, didn't take the initiative to talk. Surely you didn't like him." Adeline, Xiao Zhao comes from a good family, works at the Provincial Commission for Discipline Inspection, and is not bad-looking. "I don't know what you could find unappealing. Do you know you're already 29? If it weren't for my relationship with your Aunt Zhang all these years, someone like you wouldn't even have a chance." Mom, unable to bear Lydia's impending lengthy criticism, Adeline softly interrupted. "I didn't say Mr. Zhao is not good. I felt a bit unwell at the time. I'll contact him later when I feel better." "Well, you better talk to him properly," Lydia complained. "How many have I introduced to you? You're picky about everyone. If it weren't for that idle guy back then." "Mom," Adeline raised her voice slightly, paused, then lowered it again. "It's all in the past, long gone. As long as it's in the past. Let me tell you, Adeline, if you don't take this seriously, in the future, you can call anyone Mom. Lydia will consider you no daughter of hers." "Understood." Ending the call, Adeline stood in the corridor with her head down. The surroundings were bustling, sighs, sobbing, wailing. After all, it was a cancer hospital, inevitable. Adeline listened quietly, suddenly bursting into laughter. She returned to the doctor's office and asked, "If I don't undergo treatment, how long can I live?" "No treatment?" The doctor was about to advise, but seeing Adeline wave her hand, he turned back, "Probably around a year." "What about the time I can live independently?" "There are some things I want to do," Adeline asked again. The doctor sighed. "Generally speaking, the last 3 months will enter the terminal stage, but it depends on the individual." "Thanks." Before he could finish his words, Adeline turned and walked out. Her back was light, not like a patient just diagnosed with advanced cancer. Instead, she seemed like a bird about to fly out of its cage, full of vitality, heading towards freedom. Adeline didn't return to the office. She comfortably took a nap, then showered, applied makeup, and while blow-drying her hair, she called her best friend, Kaylee. "Go to a bar? You?" Kaylee's jaw dropped. "Yeah. I don't believe it. You dare to go to a bar?" "Adeline, I bet you, the well-behaved girl, probably doesn't even know which way the bar door opens." Kaylee chuckled. After all, Lydia's management of Adeline for over 20 years was widely known. "Just didn't know which way to go to find you," Adeline casually replied. "You decide if you want to come." "Go, of course, I'll go." Kaylee jumped up. "Wait for me, I'll take a cab to your doorstep." The two rushed to the bar street, ordering several drinks that Adeline had never heard of. "We agreed, you're treating." Kaylee still wasn't convinced. "Yes, I am," Adeline nodded earnestly. "Oh my. The sun is rising from the west." Kaylee almost jumped, then went to touch her forehead. "No fever, right? If your mom finds out you came to a bar, you're in big trouble, Adeline." "No, tell me, why did you come?" she asked. "To celebrate," Adeline smiled. "Celebrate what?" "Sure." Adeline placed a finger on her lips. "It's a secret. You'll know in a couple of days." They had a joyful evening. The next day, Adeline went to the office and, without waiting for the leader's anger, handed in her resignation letter. "Have a look at how many people want to come in," the leader patiently advised. "Although our benefits are average, it's still a government job. You're almost 30, stability is better than anything else." Adeline just smiled and shook her head. In the afternoon, she found a cardboard box, packed up her belongings, and prepared to carry them home. Before Adeline could get home, Lydia's call caught up with her. "President Liu said you want to resign." Her voice was deafening. "Adeline, with a good life in front of you, what are you messing around with? You don't even discuss such a big matter with the family. Do you still consider me your mom?" Adeline put the box down and moved the phone a bit further away. After Lydia finished shouting, she sighed slightly. Of course, you are my mom. But mom, if I discuss with you, will you agree? No. Lydia was firm. Well, if I discuss with you, what effect does it have? Adeline asked. Before, she didn't dare to retort Lydia like this. But since receiving the diagnosis yesterday, Adeline felt like she was about to be released from prison, and her courage had grown. Lydia, however, hadn't expected this, hesitated for a moment, somewhat incredulous. Adeline, is this how you talk to your elders? Have all the things I taught you since childhood been in vain? No, everything you said is correct. Adeline's tone was flat. But I've already submitted my resignation. You also know many people are waiting in line. It's impossible to change my mind. But don't be angry. I just want some time to do what I like, without causing you embarrassment. After saying that, she hung up the phone. Adeline has always been an obedient child. This is quite well known among Lydia's colleagues and friends. Every time she hears someone say, "Look at Adeline," or "If only you were half as obedient as Adeline," Lydia feels that her life is not a complete failure. Lydia graduated from a prestigious university, was attractive in her youth, and worked in a bank. One would think that she had no shortage of people introducing potential suitors. However, it's quite normal for a girl in her 20s to have a bit of a romantic mindset. No one caught Lydia's eye, but she developed feelings for Miles, the bank's chauffeur who drove a small car. Miles was indeed outstanding in appearance and treated Lydia exceptionally well. Despite everyone's advice that their education and careers were mismatched, Lydia ignored it and got married to Miles. Reality, however, is what it is, and the disparity was evident in their post-marriage life. In recent years, the bank downsized, and the small car was one of the casualties. With fewer drivers needed, Miles lost his job. Lydia, witnessing her classmates and friends climbing the corporate ladder to become bank managers or executives, felt a significant blow to her self-esteem when her husband ended up driving a taxi. Fortunately, there was Adeline, beautiful, obedient, and able to recite 300 Tang poems at the age of 5. Adeline made Lydia experience the feeling of being envied once again, and it felt incredibly good. So, Lydia invested all her hard-earned money in cultivating Adeline. Balancing academics and extracurricular activities, Adeline excelled in both. In Adeline's memory, both mom and dad had vacation time, but she never did. When she was younger, Adeline used to cry and protest, but later on, she just endured it silently. She didn't want her parents to argue, especially not to make her mom sad. Until the second semester of senior year in high school, Adeline rebelled against Lydia for the first time. She wanted to study journalism and become a reporter, presenting the world to everyone. But Lydia disagreed. She had only one requirement: Adeline must attend a top-tier university. Conveniently, Z University was conducting independent admissions, even though the major was chemistry. Mom, Adeline asked Lydia seriously for the first time, are you doing this for me, or to make others envy your daughter attending Z University? What's wrong with Z University? If you can get into Z University, why settle for an ordinary university? Are you out of your mind? Lydia suddenly became very agitated, almost jumping. Adeline knew this kind of behavior indicated guilt. Unable to convince her, Lydia went to Adeline's school, talked to her teachers, found the headmaster, and even met the principal. Everyone told Adeline that her idea was unrealistic and that a diploma from a prestigious university was more important. If it were the 29-year-old Adeline, she would understand that going to Z University satisfied Lydia's desires and aligned with the school's interests, they wouldn't refuse. But the 18-year-old Adeline didn't understand, and she wasn't accustomed to resisting. So, Adeline compromised. This time, she gave up on her dream. Certainly, at that time, Adeline could never have imagined that the obedient girl who never went against her mother's wishes would one day dare to resign. It's truly a case of if I had known, I wouldn't have bothered. Immediately, right now, come back to me. Lydia sent a voice message, furious. Even Father Miles discreetly advised Adeline that she should communicate with her mother face to face, no matter what. After all, her mother had worked hard to help her enter this government institution. Even if she decided to leave, she should consider her mother's feelings. Adeline thought about it. Since it was like this, might as well be straightforward about it. She had considered others for 29 years, it was time to be a bit willful. She bought a high-speed train ticket and returned home with her diagnosis report. The atmosphere at home was indeed very heavy. When Lydia saw that it was Adeline who opened the door, she grabbed the tissue box nearby and threw it at her. Now that you've grown wings, why are you back in this house? She glared angrily at her daughter. Adeline was somewhat sad, but behind the sadness, there was a bit of excitement about the retaliation she was about to unleash. She didn't know how they would react when they saw her diagnosis report, and she was genuinely looking forward to it. After Lydia finished shouting, seeing that Miles remained silent, she gave him a fierce look. Your good daughter, just like you, is here to provoke me. It won't be for long, Adeline suddenly said. What? Lydia didn't catch on. I won't make you endure it for too long. Adeline walked to the front of the sofa, didn't sit down, but just placed the diagnosis report on the coffee table in front of Lydia. There, late-stage lung cancer. Maybe I'll live for another year, maybe not. Lydia was stunned. She seemed unable to comprehend what Adeline was saying and asked again, what? Miles, on the other hand, had a change in his expression. Originally standing at the kitchen door, he briskly walked over, picked up the paper on the coffee table. The room became quiet, filled only with Miles's increasingly heavy breathing. It's impossible. Adeline, are you joking? Miles looked at his daughter, fragile yet pleading. It won't be too long. Adeline suddenly spoke. What? Lydia couldn't grasp it. I won't let you endure me for too long. Adeline walked to the front of the sofa, didn't sit down, just placed the diagnosis report on the coffee table in front of Lydia. There you go, late-stage lung cancer. Maybe I'll live for another year, maybe not. Lydia was in shock. She seemed unable to understand what Adeline was saying and asked again, what? Miles's face, however, changed. He originally stood at the kitchen door, but now, with quick steps, he rushed over, picking up the paper from the coffee table. The room was very quiet, with only the sound of Miles's increasingly heavy breath. It's impossible. Adeline, are you joking? Miles looked at his daughter, a blend of vulnerability and pleading in his eyes. Bring it here, let me see. Lydia suddenly spoke. Without waiting for Miles to react, she pounced over, snatching the item from her husband's hand. The name on the paper was indeed Adeline, and the conclusion below was stage 4 lung cancer with systemic metastasis. Lydia fell onto the sofa. So, you see, Adeline spread her hands, there's really no need to be so angry. Anyway, I don't have much time left. Let me do something I like. As long as it's not broadcast to the world, others may not have time to mock you, right? The room fell silent once again. After an uncertain amount of time, Lydia suddenly jumped up, emitting a sharp, piercing cry. It's impossible. I won't accept it. I've devoted my heart and soul to nurture you for over 20 years. God can't treat me like this, she exclaimed. Shut up. Miles, who had been silent for half his life, suppressed by his wife, gritted his teeth and pressed her onto the sofa. Nurturing? What you call nurturing? His eyes were bloodshot, as if he wanted to devour his wife alive. Look at our Adeline. Did she ever have a happy and carefree childhood? If she ranked second in exams, why not first? If she played a wrong note on the piano, you'd hit her with a chicken feather duster. If it weren't for you, how could our daughter fall ill at such a young age? It's all your fault, pushing her step by step to this point. Who do you think you are to blame me? If it weren't for you, this useless father, would I force her like this? Lydia forcefully pushed Miles away. No, I can't give up like this. She seemed to regain her fighting spirit in a short time, grabbing Adeline. You don't smoke, how could you get lung cancer? It must be a misdiagnosis. Let's go to Peking Union Medical College Hospital, find the best specialist. No need, Adeline pulled her arm away. Take a look. This is a diagnosis report from one of the top 3 hospitals in the country, and the professor himself is a leading expert in the country. Misdiagnosis is impossible. I've thought it over, anyway, it can't be cured. There's no need to waste time. Are you saying you're giving up treatment? Lydia shook her head. No, Adeline, you can't be so irresponsible. If you have any concerns, have you considered our feelings, mine and your dad's? Haven't I considered enough for you? Adeline's smile, which had been hanging on her face, finally couldn't hold up. In any case, even if there's only 1 year left, I hope this year of life belongs entirely to me. I am Adeline, just Adeline, not a humanoid puppet manipulated by you. I'm doing it for your own good. Lydia's chest heaved, tears blurring her face. You graduated from a prestigious university, have a good job, possess elegance and refinement. Whose credit is that? Yes, yours. But these are what you wanted, not me. What do you want then? The one who plays with photography? Just for him, you haven't dated or married for so many years, to to retaliate against your own mom?" Lydia blurted out. Everyone fell silent. After a moment, Adeline looked at her calmly, smiled, but her eyes were red. "Even if it is. After all, I have only loved one person in my life, but we can never be together. Isn't it all thanks to you?" Lydia's mention of the photographer, Chase, was Adeline's first love but had long become her ex-boyfriend. During her freshman year, Adeline, seeking to master the chemistry books she disliked, would spend her afternoons in the library until late at night. Between the dormitory and the library, there was a path lined with ginkgo trees. One day, when the ginkgo leaves covered the street, Adeline, wearing a white sweater, passed by, caught in Chase's lens, and also entered his heart. Chase and Adeline were entirely different types of people. Adeline's life was filled with goals, and every hour of her life was well planned. Chase, on the other hand, always went with the flow, appearing somewhat lazy but free and happy. So Lydia never understood why her daughter would like such a person until she found out when Adeline was almost graduating from college. Adeline rejected the idea of pursuing a master's degree, wanting to travel the world with Chase. He was a photographer, and she planned to be a content creator. Life didn't have to be wealthy, but their spiritual world had to be rich and satisfying. Spiritual world? Lydia exploded in anger. No stable job, no house or car, no children. What will you do when you're 40? And your life? Unfortunately, at that time, Adeline didn't know she wouldn't make it to 40. Even so, she still fought against it. Chase was the same. He stood in front of Lydia, enduring her cold mockery, enduring her insults, just to tell her that he loved Adeline and would respect and protect her for the rest of his life. Love? Lydia sneered. Idealism. I can't watch my daughter regret in the future. When she said this, she glanced at Miles, who pursed his lips and remained silent. Later, Adeline rarely came home, working part-time with Chase, secretly planning their future. Lydia found the school and resorted to emotional blackmail. This time, Adeline lost her love. Even though they still loved each other, no one could bear the burden of a mother's life and walk together. "Mom, have you really loved me?" After 7 years, Adeline finally asked. "All this time, were you in love with me, or the outstanding me?" Lydia was furious. Despite being shaken by the news of her daughter's cancer, her stubbornness prevented her from apologizing. Moreover, she didn't believe she was wrong. Mother and daughter parted ways, and Adeline left home with her backpack. "It's late. Where are you going?" Miles followed her. "Back to Jincheng," Adeline said. But, Miles opened his mouth a few times. "Not getting treatment is not okay. It can't be cured. And Dad," Adeline looked at him, "I want to live freely for a year, considering it as the first year of my life. Can you understand?" Miles turned away. Adeline saw his Adam's apple move. He seemed to be crying. But Adeline had no choice. "All right, Dad supports you." Finally, Miles said. As soon as Adeline boarded the train, she received a text message notification. 100,000 yuan had been deposited into her bank account. This should be all that Miles had. Despite accepting everything, Adeline couldn't help but wipe her eyes. She thought she might have been too selfish. Fortunately, it was the last time. Adeline still didn't fully understand Lydia. She was not someone who easily changed her mind. After her daughter left, Lydia stayed up all night, researching information on her computer, looking for hospitals, and not missing any misleading ads. As dawn approached, Lydia prepared to go to Jincheng but was stopped by Miles. "Since you've checked, you should know that at this stage, curing it is basically impossible," he said. "So what?" Lydia glared at him in resentment. "Miles, we only have this one daughter. If she's gone, what will we do in the future? Become a pair of pitiful helpless beings? I don't care." Miles grabbed her wrist. "I'm telling you I don't care, Lydia. The only thing I care about now is whether our daughter will be happy in the time she has left." "As if you're a good father." Lydia shook him off. "The biggest mistake in my life was marrying you. You all say I control Adeline, but how do I control her? Does she have someone arranging things for her like others who don't improve, having a dad to arrange things for her?" After saying that, Lydia walked out. When she arrived at the apartment complex where Adeline rented, she was discussing moving out with the landlord. "Don't move out, let's not move out of the house for now." Lydia interrupted her, escorting the landlord out. "Mom, I've booked a plane ticket to Shanghai for an interview, and I'll be traveling around afterward," Adeline said, surveying the surroundings. "No one will be living here if I leave it." "Why not live here?" Lydia tried to control her tone. Adeline, Mom has thought it over. Some things in the past may have been because Mom's expectations were too high. You can blame Mom, you can resign, but you can't not seek treatment. You're only 29. At this point, her eyes were still red. It's not that I don't want treatment, Adeline sighed, avoiding Lydia's gaze and turning to the window. But what's the point of clinging to life for another year or so? Instead, I care more about how to live. Who says it's meaningless? Lydia interrupted her. Don't you like that photographer? Mom will go find him, and Mom will apologize to him. Mom, Adeline turned around, looking calm. Chase has a girlfriend now, and they might get married in a couple of months. So, that's why you refuse treatment? Lydia, as if discovering a secret, couldn't help but raise her voice. Then what about Dad and Mom? Are Dad and Mom worth less than a man in your heart? Mom, I'm not, forget it. Adeline felt somewhat powerless. She thought her mother would probably never understand her in this lifetime. But Lydia didn't let up. She went from how she had made a mistake marrying Miles, to how others pretended to be friendly but mocked her behind her back. She talked about how much she had expected from Adeline and tearfully recounted their family history. Adeline had heard this kind of talk too many times. Enough. Adeline finally couldn't bear it. Mom, don't bother about me. Let me make a decision on my own, just once. Can you, please? Before the words settled, Lydia suddenly groaned, clutched her chest, and collapsed. Adeline called an ambulance and took Lydia to the hospital. The doctor said her main issue was unstable blood pressure caused by emotional agitation, and there was no major problem. After 2 days of rest in the hospital, she could go home. Adeline's relieved heart eased a bit. She rescheduled her flight, planning to leave once her mother was discharged. After buying a bowl of chicken soup for Lydia downstairs, Adeline realized things were not as simple as they seemed. Lydia had already tearfully explained the situation to the attending doctor, and now everyone in the room, including the doctor and 2 other patients with their families, looked at her with a complex expression. Adeline, the female doctor spoke after careful consideration, we've heard about your situation from your mother. There's nothing to say, Adeline glanced at Lydia and interrupted her, you're a doctor, and you know that stage 4 lung cancer is basically incurable, right? The doctor hesitated. From a clinical perspective, there are still cases where the survival period exceeds 5 years. But no matter what, we should face it and treat it positively and optimistically. Yes, the family member from the next bed leaned over, you should understand your parents. If they didn't try their best to treat you, they would find it hard to cope if you really leave in the future. Adeline smiled. So, it's not for her, but to ease her parents' hearts. What about her? Has anyone thought about whether she'll be comfortable in her limited life? Everyone has their own thoughts. Adeline placed the chicken soup on the bedside table. Maybe I'm a bit selfish. I want to live and die with a bit more freedom. Ah, you young people. The family member from the next bed was about to say something more but was pulled back by his wife lying on the bed. You talk about my life. Lydia, lying in the hospital bed, started wiping her tears again. Adeline turned and went out, calling Miles to inform him of the situation and asking him to come quickly. At the same time, she rebooked a flight for early the next morning. Her time was precious, she couldn't wait until the last moment to regret. Even now, Adeline couldn't help but regret the past 29 years. Adeline's first step into the realm of self-media was a talk show with the theme, What Different Native Families Mean for Women. She interviewed 5 peers from different social classes, each with diverse life experiences, some embracing individualism, others married with children, and a few who had even experienced divorce. One girl, whose upbringing was similar to Adeline's, used the term enclosure to describe her native family. Unlike Adeline, she chose marriage as an escape. In my mom's eyes, I belonged to her before marriage, and after marriage, I belonged to my husband. As for my own life, she helplessly chuckled, her eyes and brows filled with loneliness, it doesn't matter. Adeline cut out the phrase my own life doesn't matter to them as a subtitle, making it the main theme of her interview. Being a new account, the video didn't initially receive a high number of views. Adeline herself hadn't expected that among the viewers would be Chase. However, unlike others who focused on the content, Chase was curious about why Adeline would create such a video. Finally starting her journey into self-media, how was it possible? His initial reaction was that something significant had happened. Something big. The next evening, Adeline received a call. Though the name wasn't saved, the string of numbers was too familiar. Over the years, in moments of unbearable hardship, she had considered dialing this number to have a conversation with that person. However, it always came down to a single digit, and Adeline would abandon the idea. Things destined to have no outcome should have someone capable of moving on. Last year, she heard that Chase had a girlfriend, someone he met through a blind date. She wasn't exceptionally beautiful, but she understood his dreams. Although she had to maintain a stable job, she was willing to let him explore the world and would always be waiting for him at home. Rationally, Adeline was happy for Chase. It seemed that her cherished treasure had finally found someone trustworthy. In reality, Adeline was alone at home, drinking a whole case of beer, vomiting while tears flowed. People are contradictory like that. Adeline hadn't expected Chase to contact her again. She hesitated and didn't answer the first call. Chase called again. On the third attempt, Adeline finally picked up. "What happened?" Chase asked. Adeline remained silent. "Did you quit your job at that state-owned institution? Did your mom agree?" "She didn't agree," Adeline finally admitted. "So?" Chase hesitated. "What really happened?" After all, back when they were deeply in love, Lydia's ultimatum to take her own life had succeeded. Chase didn't believe she would change, and he certainly didn't believe Adeline would disregard this. "Nothing much, probably," Adeline deliberately acted nonchalant. "I can face it now, right?" "Face it?" Chase fell silent for a moment. Then he asked, "Adeline, are you sick? Tell me, I have the right to know." "Why?" Adeline instinctively asked. After all, the two of them had no relationship now. "What do you think?" Chase replied. Given his understanding of her and the fact that he still loved her, Adeline also understood. She covered her mouth, tears falling. After a long struggle, she managed to say as calmly as possible, "Chase, I'm free now. Because I'm dying soon." Chase forced Adeline to share her location, and he flew over the next morning. "Aren't you filming the sunset in the desert? Why are you here so soon?" Adeline pretended as if nothing had happened, shaking her phone to show Chase's Weibo page. However, Chase suddenly hugged her tightly. "Adeline, call me heartless, I regret it." His voice choked. "I shouldn't have given up back then. If she wanted to die, let her die. I could have given my life for her. If I were there, you wouldn't, I wouldn't let you." Adeline tilted her head back, taking a deep breath. The scent of sand clung to Chase's body, and if possible, she wished to bottle up this fragrance and take it into the grave. "It's okay, don't cry." After a while, Adeline patted Chase's back. "Who can live forever? I'm just taking a step ahead. I forbid it." "You're a bit late with that statement." Adeline willingly stepped out of his embrace, looking at him with a smile. "Let me treat you to a meal. I found a place with amazing spicy fish." "Go for treatment, I have money," Chase insisted. "You shouldn't be saying that, Chase." Adeline still smiled. "I thought you understood me the best." "Adeline, I'm just an ordinary person." "Yeah, really ordinary. I thought you were the epitome of freedom." Adeline turned around. "Actually, don't you think it's great? Even though I only have a year left, this year is entirely under my control. It's like a rebirth, the first year of my life. So, let me stay and accompany you." Chase followed, his voice hoarse. "Are you teasing me?" Adeline turned to assess him. "Live your life well. Don't turn me into the despised ex-girlfriend from a romance novel." "Adeline." Chase's eyes welled up again. Clearly a tall and rugged man of 1.85 meters, but now he looked helpless, like a child. Adeline couldn't bear it. "I'm serious," she stood firm, facing Chase directly. "You have to live well for me. Also, prove to the world that people can have dreams and pursue the life they want. Living in a way that others envy isn't the only way to open up life. Until your death, your heart remains free." "But," Chase choked, "you alone. Will you be scared?" He wanted to say, but it got stuck in his throat, turning into suppressed breaths. "It's fine. Who doesn't die alone?" Adeline smiled again. "Let's go, enjoy a good meal, and say our goodbyes properly." "Oh, I've made an appointment. Wait for me in the next life, and don't fall in love with someone else." The last sentence sounded a bit selfish, but Adeline, at this moment, had the right to be selfish. She thought about it. It's quite good after all. After bidding farewell to Chase, Adeline started arranging interviews with the next guest. Chase offered to handle the filming while she focused on interviewing. Ultimately, he just wanted to do something for Adeline in the end, and Adeline agreed to make him feel better. In the first month, Adeline released 3 interview videos, focusing on women's growth. Her fanbase grew from 0 to 5 digits. During this time, Lydia didn't make a single call to her. Miles quietly informed Adeline that a few days ago, during a university class reunion, someone asked about Adeline. Lydia, in front of everyone, mentioned that her daughter was highly valued by the leaders and had recently started dating a boyfriend from the Provincial Discipline Inspection Commission. If she feels comfortable with that, let her be, Adeline casually said. However, it didn't take long for these people to discover Lydia's hidden secret as Adeline's account gained popularity. A girl gives up a decent job to become an internet celebrity. Nowadays, young people just don't understand. Someone commented to Lydia. Lydia then realized that years ago, she prevented her daughter from becoming a journalist, and now Adeline was making interview programs. Adeline even advocated for women to break free from the constraints of their original families. This was revenge, blatant revenge. More importantly, how would Adeline's colleagues perceive Lydia's stance in society? Clearly, others would think that as a mother, she wasn't accepted by her daughter and had failed. Lydia couldn't accept this societal judgment. So, that evening, she also posted a video. No special setup, just a selfie with her phone, narrating her failed marriage, the high expectations and effort she invested in her daughter, and the lack of understanding and resentment from her daughter. By the end, Lydia was in tears. She wasn't acting, she was genuinely heartbroken. She didn't understand what was wrong with hoping her daughter would excel and become her pride. Why, even at this moment, couldn't Adeline just obediently seek treatment? Why did she have to stab her in the heart? The video went live, and perhaps it touched on the common emotions of many mothers. Surprisingly, it reached several 100,000 views. Most middle-aged mothers sided with Lydia, urging Adeline to understand her mother. Of course, there were a few young people who expressed that mothers like Lydia were terrifying, and they wouldn't want to live a controlled life. However, regardless of what others said, Adeline no longer cared. For her, spending time and energy arguing about right and wrong with unrelated people was not as enjoyable as finding a sunny cafe, soaking up the sun, and listening to music. The mother and daughter still did not communicate. As for Miles, the moment he discovered Lydia secretly watching their daughter's videos behind her back, he chose to forgive his wife, sighing with red eyes. Adeline spent 14 months in the world of self-media. By the 15th month, her cancer cells had spread to her brain, leading to symptoms like ringing in the ears and intermittent blindness. The time has come, Adeline wrote on Weibo. She bought beautiful clothes, hired a professional makeup artist, and recorded a farewell video. When Chase received it, tears streamed down his face. He could only respond with 2 words, very beautiful. Adeline thought so too. Despite losing weight, her long hair remained, her eyes still bright, and she had the strength to face death with composure. I never regretted giving up treatment, really, Adeline said in the video. This year has been the happiest and most fulfilling of my life. If I could, I would want this kind of life to continue. But it's impossible. If the future is still long, I probably will never have the courage. In the end, I would marry and have children as others expect, live my days routinely, and then, in the last moment, suddenly feel lost, not knowing if I truly existed in this world. She smiled, so you see, people can't have it all. This way is the best, at least on my tombstone, it can be boldly written, I am Adeline, and I lived fervently. Goodbye, everyone, thank you for your company. I'm retiring, you continue. Adeline's true departure happened a month later, at midnight, with sudden organ failure. 10 minutes later, Chase made a call and released the farewell video. Lydia calmly put on her coat, even forgetting to lock the door. However, while descending the stairs, her legs gave way, and she stumbled. At the end, the child should be calm and satisfied, Miles said, supporting her quietly. As long as the daughter feels good, it's good. People have gone without letting Chase tell us, without giving us the last meeting. Lydia suddenly couldn't hold back. I'm her mother. Am I that hateful to her? As long as the daughter thinks it's good. Miles opened the car door, responsible all her life, a bit willful at the end. I don't think it's excessive. Lydia stared at him, not saying a word for a long time. In the following days, her memory seemed to blur. She unconsciously opened short video platforms, waiting for her daughter's updates, only to then remember that Adeline was no longer there. But Adeline left her a letter. To be precise, it was an email. Nobody told Lydia about this, not even Miles. In this email, Adeline recalled her entire growth process, thanked her for being a mother, but in the end, she said if given a choice, she didn't want to be her daughter anymore. Did I really make a mistake? Lydia repeatedly asked the Adeline in the videos. But there was no one to answer her. One night, Lydia dreamt of Adeline again. This time, it wasn't about her childhood but her senior year in high school. Adeline told her that she wanted to study media and become a journalist reporting on national affairs and people's livelihoods. This time, Lydia didn't rebuke her for being impractical. Mother and daughter chose a school together, picked a major, and joyfully sent her through the school gate. Then the scene changed, and Adeline was having a wedding on a grassy field, with Chase standing by her side. Adeline looked at her and smiled. "Mom, I married the person I love the most. Are you happy for me?" Happy, Lydia smiled too. Upon waking up, she looked at the moon outside the window and suddenly burst into tears. She knew she had made a mistake. But her daughter said she didn't want to be her daughter in the next life. She had already made too many decisions for her daughter. This time, she would listen to her daughter.